This is Chapter 10A, an overview of the factorial analysis of variance. So what is factorial ANOVA? Factorial ANOVA is a test allowing us to compare one dependent variable between two or more independent variables. So by factor, we just mean variables with two or more categories. And we also call those levels or conditions. And we just want to compare our dependent variable across those conditions. So factors are similar to independent variables. We don't use that term here always because not every factor is the same as technically what an independent variable is. They can also include participant variables like gender, personality type. And factor is what the way means in the two-way ANOVA, three-way ANOVA, one-way ANOVA, etc. And then the dependent variable is just what we're measuring, as always, to see if it differs between the IV or the factor conditions. So to compare the two, we find that the one-way ANOVA that we had in Chapter 9, we call it the independent variable, or the IV then, has just one factor, and we have two or more factors in the factorial ANOVA. In the one-way ANOVA, we can have multiple conditions in the one factor, and that same is true for the factorial ANOVA. We can have multiple conditions in each factor. One-way ANOVA is called one-way ANOVA, and we call the factorial ANOVA two-way or three-way, or we can even have more factors. The one-way requires additional tests if a significant result is found, and that same is true of the factorial ANOVA. And the one-way ANOVA allows test of only one IV, but there's benefits to the factorial ANOVA because you can test multiple IVs in one sample, and so it does save money when you're gathering data for research. So your book gives this example. Do highly sensitive people react more strongly to information about success or failure than less sensitive people? And in this we have two factors. We have sensitivity, and we measure prior to the study described, participant sensitivity levels were measured, and only high sensitive and low sensitive people were selected. And we have, maybe these were all high sensitive people, and we had low sensitive people in the others. And the test condition, as you see just popped up here, is that people received either an easy or a difficult test. But the thing is, the tests appear to be the same, but actually one version of the test is very difficult and one is very easy. And so because people are seated alternately, everyone gets a test, but the people who have the difficult test think everyone has the difficult test. The people who got the easy test thinks everyone has the easy test. And so if you are a sensitive person with a difficult test, it's taking you a long time to finish it, and the people all around you have been given an easy test, they're finishing up faster, so you're thinking that there's, oh gosh, I'm failing. And that was kind of the manipulation in the experiment. And the dependent variable is mood after success or failure. So we have two factors. We have this participant factor of sensitivity, and then we have this manipulation, which would be an official IV. And that's, so we're going to find a way to combine these. So when we look at these factors, then we find that we have actually four conditions that people could be in. We could have a low sensitive person randomly receiving an easy test, and a high sensitive person receiving an easy test. We could also have a low sensitive person with a hard test and a high sensitive person with a hard test. And so because people could be in these many conditions, we have the opportunity to make multiple comparisons. Actually, four comparisons are possible. And later on, we'll see that we call this a 2x2 ANOVA, producing these four possible combinations. So let's go through some examples on these factors. Here's an example. A researcher wanted to measure family harmony for high income, moderate income, and low income individuals living in very large, medium, small, or very small homes. And we're asked to identify the DV and the factors. And so the dependent variable that's being measured is family harmony. Factor 1 is income level, high, moderate, or low. And factor 2 is home size, large versus medium versus small. I guess I actually had 5 different home sizes here, but I just listed 3 here. And we call this a two-way ANOVA because it has two factors, and the factors are the names of the variables, income level and home size. So two factors. We have more than that conditions, but we'll get to that a little later. We're just focusing on the factors in this lecture. Another example, a researcher wanted to compare overall anxiety levels in nursing home residents with and without dementia who are allowed to have either a small dog, a small cat, a fish tank, or no pet in their rooms. What are the DV and the factors? Well, the dependent variable is anxiety levels, and factor 1 is dementia. It mentions with and without dementia, so we have a pair there, dementia versus no dementia. And factor 2 is pet type. And then over here, I'm just listing the levels. These are the pet types that are option. So again, this is a two-way ANOVA, has two factors. Example 3, we have study strategy. A researcher wanted to compare test performance based on whether students used highlighting or self-testing to study, whether test was multiple choice or short answer, and whether the test takers had low or high prior knowledge about the topic. And so the dependent variable is test performance, and factor 1 is study strategy, and they listed these two levels or conditions. Factor 2 is test mode with two conditions, and factor 3 is prior knowledge with two conditions. So we would call this a three-way ANOVA because it has three factors: study strategy, test mode, and prior knowledge. Example 4 is life satisfaction. A researcher wanted to compare life satisfaction in single or married / partnered women in different careers, professional, non-professional, self-employed, or no particular career, and different education levels. And we have some education levels listed here. So the dependent variable is life satisfaction, and factor 1 is marital status, factor 2 is career type, factor 3 is education level, and we would call this a three-way ANOVA because it has three factors. So when you continue on to take the little quiz in this, don't confuse the factors, which are like the names of the variables, like marital status is a factor, career type is a factor, education level is a factor. Don't confuse that with the levels or the conditions within the factor. Those are distinct, and when you name a factor, you're just naming the variable. So that should help prepare you to take the first practice quiz 10A, identifying factors.